here. My name is Howie Heckman, one of the engineers here, the software engineers at PTS. I'll be going through a live demonstration of the application, showing you the web console and how you can configure an R700 device with ClearStream on board. We are also joined with Dr. Farhan Khan from Impinj. He's going to go through all of the great features and feature set of the Impinj R700 device and what makes it so great, and as well as why we're so excited to add support for this device with our ClearStream onboard application. We also, just before we get rolling into those two presentations here, we're joined by Brad Horn from PTS, the CEO of PTS. He's going to go through kind of a company history here, as well as what makes PTS, or what type of software we try to provide our customers, and why we've expanded support to the R700 device. So that's kind of what we're going to go through here. Again, today's agenda: PTS CEO Brad Horn will start, followed by Dr. Farhan Khan, and then back over to me for a live demonstration of the new product. So with that, I'll kick it over to Brad.
Thanks, Howie. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Brad. I'm the CEO, not one of the CEOs. I am the CEO and co-founder of PTS. We've been in business since 2000, and since the beginning, our mission has been to provide simple, easy to use data collection software that anyone, non-programmers and programmers, can utilize to create enterprise class applications. We try to make it affordable, we make it free to try, and we try to build in the best features and support of the best hardware available. And that's why we are doing the webinar today. We recently opened up one of our features, the onboard feature, to the R700 after the request of many of our customers. We've actually supported Impinj for many years with our ClearStream software, but our new onboard feature is relatively new. Howie's going to go through it and show you why it's special, why it's different than what else is out there, and why we think you could really get great value out of it. But since we have such a diverse user base or group here today, we have end users, both big and small. We have integrators, we have resellers that work with Impinj, and those that work with PTS. And I noticed a lot of the names on here, we didn't recognize them, so we thought it would be great if we just gave you a high-level overview of our Tracer Plus software and really how ClearStream and Tracer Plus work together. So, like I said, we've been in business since 2000. Tracer Plus was our first major product release. It's a rapid application development tool designed for non-programmers and programmers alike, so they can quickly create customized mobile barcode, RFID, NFC, and BLE apps. Essentially, you could download our tool for free, platform it on an iOS, Android, or even a Windows PC, and hopefully within minutes, through our samples or through your own skills, you can create a usable data collection application. We try to support best-in-class hardware, and included with our RFID selection, we support the TSL sleds, and as well as JANM devices, which are a nice combo, and we see one of those on the right-hand side of the screen. Tracer Plus is not just for RFID, it also supports BLE, HF, LF RFID, NFC, barcode, GPS, image capture, and a host of other features. Again, the idea really behind the whole software toolkit is so programmers and non-programmers can take advantage of the latest features and the latest hardware and build world-class applications. Since the beginning, up until around 4 years ago, we never provided a back-end system, so our tools are really configurable and easy to connect to pre-existing systems. We have middleware in place that allow you to take your pre-existing software and add an RFID component on it, a mobile component, or with ClearStream, a fixed component. But over the last 3 years, we've also offered a cloud component for those folks that don't have internal developers to create an application, or they don't have a back-end system that properly handles their RFID data. And then we will also connect that cloud to other systems like SAP, Oracle databases, Salesforce, whatever it may be. I'm not going to go too deep into ClearStream, but I will give you a high level of why it exists. So we started seeing our RFID user base start growing tremendously around 10 or 12 years ago. And at the same point, everybody, all of our customers who are used to paying not that much for our software licenses and creating their own apps, said, this is all well and good, but I'd really like to take advantage of these passive RFID systems. Can you help us with that? And we reached out to our user community, saw what was out there, and we quickly learned that you needed to be a developer or have a six-figure budget to create a fixed RFID solution. And we just got to it, and we created ClearStream to solve that problem. And over the years, it's grown. It can run just like Tracer Plus in a bunch of different conditions. It can run locally. So if you have a very locked down facility, you don't need to hit a cloud. You can keep it all local. You can run it on the reader, which we're talking about today, which gives you persistent storage. If you lose connectivity, it's still collecting data. And you can also push over-the-air updates and all that. And then we also have a hybrid version that Howie's going to talk about, how you can set that up, where if you're not a programmer, but you want the features of onboard, you can share that data to a ClearStream instance. We're not the best at naming products. So when we originally released ClearStream, it was ClearStream RFID, and it still is, but it supports a bunch of other technologies. HF, LF is common and part of the RFID family. BLE and Eddystone are something we've recently picked up. And then we're also doing a lot of fixed barcode connections for people running assembly lines and those things that they just need to catch a barcode and stream it into that database. Just like Tracer Plus, it integrates with most of the databases out there. We have a really cool connectivity features that you can map your data to that pre-existing system without being a programmer, and it's also cloud compatible. So our hope here is those that aren't familiar with our software, go to these websites, take a test drive, and try it out in the near future. We really think you're going to see value in it. But again, why we're here today really is because our customer base, which is over 10,000 customers over the last 5 years, they loved the fact that we supported all the different readers, but they saw this need for this onboard technology, which some of the manufacturers offered, but there was no agnostic provider that they could run different hardware with it. And we heard loud and clear from our user base that the R700 was important to them, and they needed the onboard on that. So I'm really excited to hear the doctor give us a high level and then a little deeper view on the R700 and what sets it apart. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Farhan Khan of Impinj.
Thank you very much, Brad. Hi, everyone. It's been a while, anyone said doctor that many times, but thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to set the scene for the Impinj R700, starting from this quote from Impinj CEO Chris DiOrio. So unfortunately, it's a quote, so I have to kind of read it. Leading enterprises are connecting everything to the IoT. So if you look at the vision of Impinj, it's really boundless IoT. Of course, Internet of Things has been around for many years now, but it's really that everything, right? So we're really trying to get those and everyday items that people are trying to get a digital twin of, trying to get it online, and thereby monitor its presence, monitor its status, and know its identity is really what Impinj is trying to do as a whole. So the quote continues, we designed the Impinj R700 to meet the needs of those IoT deployments today and tomorrow, leading into the future, with industry-leading receive sensitivity. So one of the things that the R700 currently is offering is that highest sensitivity in the market, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. The Impinj R700 can read ever smaller global RAIN RFID tags at the highest speeds. So here, ever smaller tags is also important because that's also the other end of the spectrum, or what we call the platform, in terms of those tag chip ICs. So following Moore's law, chips are getting smaller and smaller. But again, the currently latest offering from Impinj is the most sensitive chips in the market, namely the M700 tag chip families. And then the highest speed is quite important as well, and I'll highlight that in the next slide. It also builds on Impinj's long history. Oh, sorry, I was still on the quote. It is a long one. Yeah, there we are. So it also builds on the Impinj's long history delivering readers with enterprise-grade reliability, maximizing solution uptime, and protecting enterprise investment. So again, a bit of a sales pitch there, but it does refer to the previous products that Impinj has offered, namely the Impinj Speedway readers. Okay, so with that, next slide, please. So if I talk about the first 3 bullet points, currently, as I say, the Impinj R700 offers the highest performance, and it is the fastest or the highest performing fixed RAIN RFID reader offered by Impinj. And that with the most simplest of designs currently as compared to the other products. So on the lower left-hand side, you can see the 2 side images of the Impinj R700. The middle diagram there on the right-hand side of it, you can see that GPIO connector point. So it is a Phoenix 9-box connector. Previously, if you look at the Speedway reader, we didn't have that before. You had to have an adapter, and then it would connect via a serial cable. That would mean a little bit of more wiring, but now you've got pretty much the solution on board to connect any GPIO devices. Same goes with host USBs and other onboard features that really weren't there with the, or directly weren't there with the Speedway readers. So reliable deployments with the power and network failure is also an option that's considered and available on the Impinj R700, while providing a CAP, a custom application partition within the memory. So custom applications similar to what we are talking about here, offered by PTS, can be installed on the R700 and hence make it a real edge device. So you can have it in the field, have the software run onboard its memory, and then run your application straight from the reader. So previous readers did offer CAP as well, but with a certain limitations or not the great features that the R700 is offering, which I'll talk briefly about in the next few slides. So if you see the, and speaking of performances, the graph kind of shows you one of the industry-leading performance metric, which is the speed of reading. So the Impinj R700 offers half the time of reading of tags as compared to alternative readers available in the market. That goes with the highest sensitivity as well. So once you do have higher sensitivity in a reader, you are able to read tags at a higher distance. Together with a fast performing reading time, that really opens up lots of use cases. So that is kind of on its own a standalone feature, which I thought, discussing at the high point here would offer value. And then finally, as I say, the M700 chips currently being the most sensitive in the market, we kind of talk about at Impinj, we talk about the better together story. So meaning that if Impinj readers are used with Impinj tag chips, the readers go out and beyond to really offer some of the features that you wouldn't really get with other readers. So as an example, Impinj readers have an inbuilt onboard option of auto tune. So if the reader identifies it's an Impinj chip, it will really open up that auto tune feature and now really try to come up with more RF modes and different power levels to really try and get to read that hard to read tag in that fast manner. So your complex use cases are now offering those hard to read tags being read at a quite faster speed. So this, and of course, this is an option. This option isn't available when it sees that these are not Impinj tag chips. So hence the better together story. Okay, next slide, please. So some of the other key features that I want to quickly highlight here are currently already mentioned. So highest sensitivity, power edge processing. So again, it's a purely edge device. It doesn't really require any host system to be connected. All the applications can be run straight onboard the reader with that higher processor, which is a dual core 1 GHz processor. And then it's quite secure and upgradable as well, obviously with the firmware releases offered by Impinj. A developer-friendly interface because with the offer of the IoT device interface, and I'll show you a brief glimpse into what the software looks like in the next slide. You can do pretty much all your settings and configurations straight from that IoT device interface. Optimized and designed for inventory. You can set up multiple zones using multiple antennas, not just 4 given direct ports onto the reader. Of course, with the antenna hub, you can create multiple zones using multiple antennas as well. And then a support, as I already mentioned, the GPIO connectivity support on board the reader. Okay, next slide, please. So yeah, this is just a visual representation of one of the firmware version of the IoT device interface. Maybe too small to see just yet, but when you get your hands on the slide, you can see you can do a lot of settings and configurations straight on board the reader. So again, this is no separate software or application that you need to install. This comes with the hardware of the R700 as a part of its firmware. So straight away, once the reader is hooked up using, for example, the IP of the reader, you can access this and do all your settings, configurations, and testing straight away from the reader. And hence that quick upscale time that we spoke of in the start literally 10 minutes. Once you have the hardware, you can start getting read data come in. Okay, next slide, please. So yeah, that's really it. I just wanted to, again, getting your hands on the slide, wanted to leave you with this slide that kind of goes into the detail of the really detailed specifications of the R700. And within that, you can find out all of the specifications and details needed. Yeah, that's it. So with that, I'd like to hand over back to Howie from PTS.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. Khan. Thanks for all that information. Again, all of this detail here is why we were excited to add the R700 as a supported device to our ClearStream onboard application, and why we're so excited to present this here to you guys today. So with that, I did actually just want to jump in quickly to what is ClearStream RFID. For the people that may not be familiar with our applications, just to kind of give a high-level overview before I jumped into live demo about the different pieces of the software. So ClearStream RFID, it's really a suite of tools that allows you to quickly configure fixed RFID readers into a pre-existing system. Traditionally, it's come, as Brad mentioned, as a ClearStream server-based application that allows you to map in a graphical point-and-click way fixed RFID readers to really any type of back-end system or service. From the screenshot you can see here on the right-hand side, this is a screenshot of ClearStream RFID, and it really maps a fixed reader to, in this case, an ODBC database, so that as this reader collects tag information, it sends it to wherever you select that destination. And I'm going to go through a little bit of demonstration of that in just a bit here. But it's a point-and-click, drag-and-drop type interface where you can quickly hook up fixed RFID readers to those back-end systems. Some of the benefits of it, there's no programming involved in the application. You don't have to program these readers. It finds the readers for you if they're on your network and provides just the tools to map them into a pre-existing system. And it's configurable for any type of application. It's not locked down to a specific vertical for fixed RFID. It's not meant to be integrated into a vertical back-end service. It's really configurable by the user for really a lot of different applications. Just some samples here: work in process tracking, stockroom inventories, supply chain logistics, things like that. And that's, again, the ClearStream RFID server-based application from the screenshot. What we're here to talk about today is our ClearStream onboard application, which is a version of ClearStream that runs locally on the device. And like Dr. Khan said, the Impinj R700 supports these applications running on the device so they can kind of operate autonomously where they're out in the field collecting tag data. Maybe they don't have a reliable network connection, and the ClearStream onboard application allows you to kind of queue up the reads, have that reader continually scan for tags, even in an offline mode, and send that data back to a home service when it has connectivity. So I'm going to go through those ClearStream onboard features. I'm going to also show you how you can tie in ClearStream onboard to our ClearStream for Windows server-based application as well. So like Brad mentioned, it can work in a hybrid mode where you're allowing for the flexibility and data collection of the ClearStream onboard application, sending its tag data and working in tandem with ClearStream for Windows, and which offers that easy to use mapping interface to map it into a pre-existing system. It could be even something as simple as a text file or Excel workbook, so that this remote RFID reader, the R700, scanning, collecting tag data, storing that locally on the device, can send that tag data to ClearStream. ClearStream then routes it to text file, Excel workbook, backend database, or anything like that. So I'm going to go through all of those kind of features in demo here. And here just to talk a little bit about what ClearStream onboard is and how it's different than ClearStream, our server-based application, is that it runs on the reader. So the application is actually installed directly on the R700 device, runs on the device. It's always running, it's always collecting tag data, those tag events, and then sends that data back to your pre-existing system when it has connectivity. It's completely configured through the cloud. You can configure this on a mobile device. Really anywhere out in the field, you can see the status of your readers. And then it also sends your collected tag data anywhere. So as that reader is collecting tag information on the device, it could send it to our ClearStream for Windows application, like I'd mentioned. It could send it to a custom HTTP endpoint. It could even send it to our PTS cloud service, which, like Brad had touched on, is a customized cloud console that can be developed to collect the tag data that's being collected by ClearStream, as well as our Tracer Plus application. So some of the key features of ClearStream Onboard, like I had mentioned, it's got offline tag storage. So really you can install this device out in the field. It's collecting tag data, network connectivity goes down, things like that. You're always going to capture that information. As long as there's no loss in power, you're going to be reading tags, collecting that on the device, and then batch it over to your selected endpoint when that connectivity becomes available. So there's no downtime. It also offers a lot of ease of installation, maybe in certain IT environments where you would like this device just to sit on the network and phone its tag data back home to maybe a centralized server or some type of cloud install. It can do that without having to maybe set up a VPN for your readers or worrying about the IT infrastructure of getting this remote reader sending tag data to some location. ClearStream Onboard handles that for you, since it can queue up the tag data on the device and then send it and phone it home to your endpoint when it has connectivity. It's also completely remotely configured. So as these devices are out in the field, you can manage the readers, change the power levels, the tag events that are recorded on the reader, tag filtering, all that sort of stuff is done remotely, so that you don't actually have to get your hands on the reader to make adjustments. All the configuration changes are done in real time, like I'm going to show you just in a little bit here. It's all done in real time, so that when you make those changes on the cloud console, those are then downloaded on the reader side, adjusted on the reader, and those changes will take effect immediately. We also offer things like over-the-air updates or OTA updates. This allows you to push out any updates via the web console, so that you can keep these readers up to date with the latest software, and also view system health to see if there are any readers that are offline, and it also phones home any debug information just to see what might be going on with a particular reader within your environment. A little bit here about the ClearStream portal. So I'm going to actually just jump right into this in the live demo, but the ClearStream Onboard portal is where you would log in to view your devices, see again the system health, change the configurations of all of the readers that you have in your environment, and again, just to debug any readers that might be offline, and be notified of readers that go offline and haven't been reporting tag data back to your endpoint. So I'm going to go through a live demonstration of that in a minute. I also would like to mention, I don't know if I said it at the beginning of the webinar, we will have a question and answer period when I finish up with the demo. So if you guys have any questions as you're watching here, please feel free to send them over in the question panel, and we'll get to those in just a few minutes. So with that, I'm going to hop out of the PowerPoint and actually kind of show you the application and how everything works. Now, before I show you also, I'd like to mention that all of the software that I show you here today is available as a free trial from our website. So you can get this latest version from ClearStreamRFID.com. Just click on the free download button up here on the top of the site, and you can go ahead and trial everything that I show you. So it's always good, I'd say, to kind of look at the webinar here, trial the software, see how it might work in your environment, and you can even come back and follow along with the webinar to see how you might configure certain things, because all of the features are available through the trials on our website. And I thought I would mention, because Brad brought it up on his slide, that tracerplus.com, if you'd like to download the free trial there as well, you can take a look at our website here and get a free download of Tracer Plus for mobile RFID data collection, and also sample applications and all that for Android and iOS-based devices. So with that, I'm going to jump over and go into our console here. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to the portal. Now, when you sign up for a free trial, you'll get access to this portal here. So you'll just log in with your username and password, which will jump you into the cloud console here. Now, I have this as a new company set up. So there's no readers configured just yet in my environment. You can see in this devices view down below, I don't have anything configured within my environment. The only person that's logged in is myself to this cloud console. So I would now need to just start adding readers to my cloud console here to start collecting tag data. So to do that, the first thing I just need to do is add my R700 device to this portal. So I'm going to click View Users Devices and click Add New Device. And the only thing I need to do here is add the device ID of my R700, place it into the device ID field, and hit Save. So this will now on my dashboard, I'll see that I have one device configured. Now the cloud console doesn't know exactly what this device is just yet because it hasn't phoned home to the console to say, hey, here I am, and this is what type of device I am. So the next thing I need to do is actually just install the ClearStream onboard agent onto the R700 device. So to do that, I'm going to bring over the interface that actually Dr. Khan had mentioned, the Impinj web console here, to install the ClearStream onboard application. Just a little bit about this here. You can manage the reader, like Dr. Khan had mentioned. So you can set up different network settings that you need to set up, configure on this device. You can add the ClearStream onboard application here, and you can just make some changes here that you can manage for this device. In my case here, all I'm going to do is go ahead and install ClearStream onboard. So to do that, I'm just going to either drag and drop into this box here, the application, or click select, and then select the ClearStream onboard .upgx file. And this comes with the download from our free trial on the website. So I'll just go ahead and hit open here. This is the install process of ClearStream onboard. It's just taking the install package, pushing it over to the R700 device here that I'm going to demonstrate today. It goes through a simple install process here and then validates everything. When this install is done, it will require that I do reboot the reader. Now, this is just a one-time install. You don't have to do this afterwards. And again, you can do OTA updates for these readers. So anytime the software ClearStream onboard is upgraded, it can be done over the air. You don't actually have to use this interface, but for the initial installation, you would do it this way. So here the upgrade has been installed, or the ClearStream onboard application has been installed. It's just requesting that I reboot, so I can do that right here. I'll go ahead and click reboot on this dialog. Now this will cause the Impinj R700 to go through a reboot process. The ClearStream onboard application is going to start up automatically now after this reboot, and it should then phone home to our cloud console. And since we already added it in over there by that device ID, it should come online. So the reboot doesn't take too long here, but it will go ahead and reboot. And once it comes online, you'll see that this tile here that I have on my dashboard will switch to show the status of the R700. So the device is rebooting. So it's rebooted, and in 1 second here, you'll see that this will go green, and it will display some of the details of the R700. Just refresh this here to get the image of what the device looks like. So now you can see I just installed ClearStream onboard, and it's now connected to my web console. So I can immediately see the device ID. I can see the different versions of the software as well as the firmware running on this R700. It also gives me a link over to that web portal. So if I had to change something within this Impinj settings here, I can do that. But it's connected currently to the web portal. If this reader were to go offline, I can then see the state of that with regards to the current state of this device. So down below, once this reader's online, there's two options you have here. You can view the tag information of what's being read by this reader. You can also configure it. So this configure link is where you can go ahead and change some settings on the device. I thought to start, I would just do a simple settings change and then come back and talk about each one of the settings within the portal here. But if I go ahead and click edit, I'm just going to name this reader, maybe Warehouse 100 R700, and hit save. And then let me jump quickly back over to the dashboard. And what you'll notice here is all I did was change the name of the device in my portal. And then the configuration option here, it says changes pending. So this means that I've made changes to this reader. They're currently saved in the portal. The reader now has to phone home and detect these changes and then download them to the device. And then once it applies those changes, as you can see, it switched to up to date. So once I see this up to date here, I know that any changes that I made through the web portal have now been applied to the device. In this case, it was simply the reader name, and you could change any of those settings there, but it was just the reader name, just to quickly show you how I can get these tags in. I'm now going to click the View Tags option to see the tags now that this reader is currently scanning. So I have it on a low power, that's by default. And if I take an RFID tag and put it over to the antenna here, the R700 is now scanning a tag that I have in front of the antenna. And it's ClearStream onboard is configured to phone that tag information home on some set interval. And I'll go ahead and talk about that in a second in the configuration. But if I hit refresh here, now you can see the tag that I just scanned has been reported to the web portal. So I have this EPC was scanned by this device. So if I had 10, 15 or more devices, you could see which device scanned the tags. It reports the name that I had changed in the configuration there, the antenna that scanned the tag, date time stamp, and then the event that happened. So this is a tag visible event. It was actually seen by the reader and then reported back to the cloud console, as well as RSSI. And if we had a user memory, if we turn on user memory bank scanning, we can record that as well. So this recorded the tag information and sent it to the console. So you can see how easy it was to log into the ClearStream RFID web portal, make a slight or install ClearStream onboard so it connects to the web portal, make a simple change, and then start collecting tag information in the tag viewer here of the web portal. So we can see exactly what this reader is currently scanning. So I thought I'd jump back over now and kind of talk about the configuration options for these readers. So if I go back to the dashboard and go to view tags, I'll go through each one of these different, oops, not view tags, I'm sorry, configure. I'll go ahead and click configure here and talk about some of the different options we have for configuring this reader and what it can do. First off, you can change the name like we did. You can also turn the reader on and off. So if you had to maybe disable a reader for some length of time, you could do that through the web portal. We have a section here for the data endpoint. This is where the tag data gets sent based on some interval. So right now I have it at the default location, which is our cloud console, our ClearStream cloud console. The endpoint is enabled. It sends it to this URL every 15 seconds or 15,000 milliseconds, and it'll send a maximum of 200 tags at a time. You can also specify some HTTP header information here. So if you wanted to go to your own custom endpoint, it might require like an API token or key or something like that. You can go ahead and define the settings on the reader for where it's sending that tag information. So this is the default, but it could be something else. It could be a custom endpoint, and in a minute I'll show you how it could also be a ClearStream server-based instance, so you can map the tag data then to some other system. Below that, we have the scan mode. So this is how often and when the reader is actively scanning for tags. Most commonly, this is just set to the continuous option here, but you can specify a general purpose input, GPI input scan mode. And this would allow you to define like a motion sensor or a photo eye or some type of button or something to trip the scan and then scan for whatever you specify here. So if I were to say something like port 1, I have a photo eye set up and scan for 10 seconds after it's tripped, I could go ahead and put that into a GPI scan mode. You can also do a periodic scan mode where it will turn on for some length of time on a set interval. So it'll come on and turn off and come on and turn off and so on. And then also an option for reporting the user memory of the tag. So you can have the user memory queried from the tag and report that with your tag data to the endpoint you have selected above. Down below that, you have one of the more commonly configured options within ClearStream. It's the tag events. So on the reader itself, you're typically getting a lot of hardware scans, hardware level scans of the RFID tag. You could be getting thousands of tags, but you might want to only report based on certain events that happen. By default, we specify the visible event as the tag event that's reported to the endpoint. So like you saw before, I scanned that tag and it was reported as visible to my endpoint, but I can also report when it's not visible. So that's commonly used if you want to see the length of time a tag is at a reader. You can get a tag event for when it's visible and then when it's not visible. So I thought for the demo, I'd maybe turn that on. And I can also specify what event gets reported to the endpoint for what that happens. So we could do something like at workstation and no longer at workstation. So these are the events that are reported to the data endpoint that define what is actually happening with this tag. Is it being scanned at the endpoint or has it gone away? So it's commonly used for just keeping track of how long a tag maybe has dwelled in front of an antenna or a group of antennas for a reader and reporting those different events to the endpoint. The timeout setting here just defines how long we're going to take before we assume that it's not visible. So we see it, and then 10 seconds later, if we have still not seen it, it'll report it. It'll assume then that it's no longer in front of the antenna, it's gone away. So you can increase this if you wanted to, maybe probably decrease the amount of tag traffic to your endpoint. There's all sorts of options for tag data filters. So we can add a bunch of filters here. Maybe an EPC starts with some value. Maybe an RSSI has to be greater than some level. You can OR these together, but you can set up a whole bunch of different filter groups for the tags so that you can define what tag data in your environment you actually want to report to the endpoint. You're not reporting things that are outside of these filters that you've defined here. For the demo today, I'll just leave these off so that I can scan the sample tags that I have set up. But you can define all those filtering options for the reader. Down below that, you have the antenna settings. So let's call it workstation 10. You can name each one of the antennas. So like you saw in the data coming over to that data grid, you had the antenna name. You can change that. So let's say we had an antenna called workstation 10. You can also adjust the power level here, so you can go for further scans for further away or less. I'm going to keep this low again as well because I'll start getting too many tags in my environment. But you can adjust these antenna powers. Down even further below that, we have the general purpose output GPO settings. This is where it would allow, like Dr. Khan had mentioned, you can power up the GPO ports on the reader to do things like buzzers or lights based on activity in the reader. So you could turn on GPO 1 if a tag was visible or no longer visible, or maybe your data endpoint got disconnected. So you could have a warning on the reader itself that, hey, something's wrong. It's trying to send tag data to its data endpoint, but it's failing. So you can have some visual indicators at the reader that the tag data is not getting to where it's supposed to be, as well as inventory started and stopped, and also no tags read during an inventory. Maybe you want to trip a reader with a photo eye, and if nothing's read, power up a red light to say, hey, something was supposed to have been read as that package went by. I'll leave those off for now. But all of these settings here you can adjust, and then just simply hit save. So the one change here I made was I changed the report not visible to on, just to show you the difference in behavior there. I'll go back to my dashboard. You can see now the dashboard says changes pending. The changes pending indicates, if you're looking at the portal, that the reader has yet to apply those settings changes. Once it applies them, it will go to up to date. And I can now jump over to my view tags option here. I'm going to go to the last minute. I'm going to take the tag again. I'll put it on top of the antenna. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and pull it away. So now I'm pulling it away. And in this case, I should get 2 events for that one action there. I put the tag in front of the reader and then I pulled it away. So here, the first one that comes over is my at workstation event. And if I refresh this again, here's my no longer at workstation event. So I got 2 timestamps there of when that antenna first showed up in front of the antenna and then when it had left in the last scan that was seen by the Impinj R700 device. So I'm able to control the data that's getting sent to this endpoint. Finally, what I thought I'd do for today is switch this reader over to point to ClearStream for Windows. And I thought I'd do this because it gives maybe some of the people that aren't familiar with the ClearStream for Windows product a little taste of how that application works and how the two work in tandem. So I have ClearStream for Windows installed here on my PC. I don't have anything configured just yet, but just again, like you saw from that screenshot, the ClearStream for Windows application has a source of data and a destination of data. The source is an RFID or maybe a BLE scanner. On the left-hand side, destination is where you'd like to send that tag data. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and send it to a Microsoft Access database that comes with ClearStream. Again, it could be any type of Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, all that sort of stuff, Excel, text files, as well as custom endpoints, which could even be email or another HTTP service. For this, I'm going to go ahead and hit ODBC and then the ClearStream RFID sample database. And then I'll select the RFID tag list table in that database. So I'm sending any tag information that's scanned from the left-hand side here into this database table. I do have to now add the reader here to my devices form. So I'm going to go ahead and click add, and then I'm going to select onboard option. Now, we've always supported all of the Impinj devices. If you're not using ClearStream onboard, you would select Impinj here as your option for connecting to, say, a Speedway reader into ClearStream. That would then be controlled by ClearStream for Windows, this server-based application, and communication would be made from this application. But if you're using onboard running on the reader, you select the onboard option. And then just like we did for the web portal, I'd need to enter the device ID here because I need to know which device is sending the tag data to and how to map it to the destination. And then finally down below, you'll see the new endpoint you'll want to use for ClearStream onboard. So it lists it here. If you're sending tag data to ClearStream for Windows, use this URL, which I will then go ahead and I'm going to start this up. So now this is on. So I have ClearStream for Windows currently hooked up a ClearStream onboard device over to the database table here. And the next thing I just need to do is go back to ClearStream, the web portal, and change where this reader is sending its data. So I'm no longer going to send it to the cloud here, this PTS cloud, ClearStream Cloud Console. I'm going to edit it and change it to this endpoint here, which ClearStream for Windows told me about. So I'll go ahead and hit save on that one. Jump back to the console so I can see when these changes are applied. So this will, again, it's phoning home, looking for any changes that have been applied to it through the web console. And then once it applies those changes, it will say, it'll switch to up to date on the configuration options here. And then I will be able to send my tag data over to, there's up to date. I'll be able to send my tag information now, rather than to the cloud, I send it here to ClearStream for Windows. So I'm going to take this tag, maybe I'll switch, I'll take 3 tags here. I'm going to put 3 tags on top of this antenna. And then this will, you'll see in real time, when that device batches over those 3 tags, it will batch them over to the Microsoft Access database. There it goes. So you can see here, ClearStream device 1, tag sent to destination 3. If I go to the database here, you can see those 3 tags now that I have, each scanned by workstation 10. If I then go ahead and pull this, the 3 tags off of the antenna and pull them away, I'm going to get the event in a little bit here that the tags are no longer visible directly to that database table. The one thing I will do is open up that Microsoft Access database just so you can see that it's going directly into the database. So here you can see this is the sample that comes with the installation. And if I go here, you can see it's reported those tags at workstation 10. And I get the different events posted here at workstation for 3 different tags, followed by the no longer at workstation tags. So I'm able to make ClearStream onboard, send its tag data to a ClearStream for Windows, which is then mapping it to some system. And again, it could be something simple like a text file. So you can have an R700 that's batch scanning tags, and every once in a while it sends it over to a text file, maybe on a network share. You can have it send to some type of ODBC database table, SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, anything like that. It could be an Excel workbook. It could be an email, an SMTP email. It could be even one of the features of 7.0 is a human interface device. So it could come over as keyboard data. I don't know where you'd use ClearStream onboard to that, but just to note the flexibility of where you can send the tag data to into ClearStream. So you have a bunch of different options there for sending that tag data back to ClearStream and whatever the final destination of that data is. I think that's everything that I wanted to show you for the demonstration today. I hope it was clear how you can quickly set up a Impinj R700 fixed RFID reader with ClearStream on board and have it hooked up to our ClearStream console here and make changes to that reader and have that reader send its tag data directly either to this console or some other endpoint. With that, I thought we'd jump back over to the PowerPoint and to any questions that you guys might have.
Howie, it's Brad, and I've been looking at the questions coming in, and I thought it may be important just for us to talk a little bit about the support resources PTS has, because anything we don't answer today, or if you want to really get in deep with the software, we have a really great resource that we make available 2 days a week. We call them the open offices, and we actually open up a webinar for our end users or pre-trial or trial users to talk to directly to the engineers at PTS and get their questions or their configuration questions answered. So again, if we don't answer anything specifically today, because it looks like there's a lot of questions, please register for those open offices for Tracer Plus or ClearStream. I guess I'll field the first one to give Howie a break, and he got a lot out there and a lot of good information for you guys to review. And this webinar will be up for review probably within a few days as well. So, you know, it's on YouTube. We have a great channel with resources showing you how to use the software. Anyway, so there was a question that someone asked, and they asked about the licensing model, and I figured that would be important for everybody. So we offer our licenses in 2 formats. We have a subscription version, which gives you all of the features that we're seeing today, and then we have a perpetual version. Within the subscription version, you get free support and upgrades, and we have a complete ticket system running through Zendesk, so you get access to that and get your questions answered. I think our SLA is around 4 hours, so that's what you would get with the subscription version. With the perpetual version and a maintenance contract, you would get all the same things, but you won't get the portal access, so you really can't easily remotely manage your readers like Howie was showing. But that's great for customers who have, you know, maybe it's military or government that you can't really go to the cloud. They have to keep it all local, so they'll be your traditional perpetual user. I guess the next question for you, Howie, and this is a really good question. How many fixed readers could a single instance of ClearStream be deployed within a production setting?
So yeah, it's a good question. And really there's no technical limit for the number of readers. In most environments, the tag data that's coming over into ClearStream is kind of on a lower level because you're controlling with the tag events how much data is being sent to ClearStream. So while there's no technical limit, and we've seen installs with a very, very large number of readers, the only thing I can say is that if you had a very, very high volume scanning, you might want to consider breaking up the instances of ClearStream amongst maybe different regions or different locations within your environment. I don't know if I've ever seen an install that has run into severe limitations with the amount of data, because again, it's not that much data in terms of the number of bytes and things that are being transferred from the reader to ClearStream, because it's really controlling that at the tag event level. It's saying only send a tag visible event unless this tag goes away. So it's a lower and can lower the amount of data being processed by ClearStream, and then also the amount of data being sent to your destination, because that can also be a concern as well. If ClearStream, based on its settings, is getting a large number of tags, in some cases that might be too much or might overload maybe a web service that you're trying to send the tag data to. So that's why we do have also settings like limiting the amount of tag data that gets sent to the endpoint per interval, so that the web service can consume maybe 200 tags at a time rather than getting, say, a batch of 10,000 tags that sends over to the endpoint. It'll send a little bit at a time so that the web service or whatever that endpoint is can keep up. So although I don't have an exact answer for you, ClearStream doesn't have any actual technical limit where it says you can only add 100 readers to ClearStream. You can add as many as you'd like. And really, it might come down to performance that you see or issues that you see maybe on the data endpoint side. Or if you have a very high volume number of tags that you need to see with a large number of events, you might start to see like the processing CPU usage of ClearStream spike because of that, and then you might want to consider a second instance or break out those ClearStream instances to handle more data. A good question.
I'll let you take over after this, Howie. But there's a question for Dr. Khan here, and it's a really good question about the the power of the R700. And his question is, if we reduce the sampling interval and spend more time per tag to sample with this R700, would you be able to untangle more tags per cubic area, say a truck full of clothes with a tag on each piece of clothes?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, that is a good question. My only concern here, the answer, I can go into a lot of detail in terms of answering that, because it does touch a couple of points that need explanation. So obviously don't want to do that here. So basically what I'll do is answer it in a short way to say that, yes, in theory and in principle, that is the way forward. That's how the reader would try to do in terms of reading all the tags in present to make sure that, and I assume the question here mainly trying to ask that, is this is the way to get all the tags read while doing that inventory. So again, yes, in principle, that is the way. However, in practice, in reality, it's done through what we call reader modes. And this is not Impinj specific thing. It's what fixed readers have. Is a couple of configuration options that you can tune based on what use case you're working on. So for example, one use case could be items are going through a conveyor belt in a sequence one after the other, and you're trying to read them. So that's a different scenario to what we've got here, a truckload of clothes with tags on, and you've got bulk inventory and you want to read them. So reader modes puts the reader into different modes, so to speak. So it knows now which use case I am in and what do I need to perform in terms of performance and what am I trying to read. Read all the tags that possibly I can, read certain tags at a certain distance, like in the demo we saw, you could change the power of the antennas. So that's one example. But even to the reader level, there are certain configurations. So under the reader mode setting, the two main specifications, what it uses are the sessions and the search modes. So with sessions, you get different types of sessions when you want to do one thing. So again, going to how it was mentioned in the question, basically what happens is the reader goes at and says, okay, how many tags are out there? Give me your EPC or your unique ID. Some of the tags respond, and the ones that do respond, the reader now kind of puts them into this mode where they cannot communicate any further for a limited amount of time. In that limited amount of time, the reader now goes on to read further tags that may be in the read range. And this is where the sensitivity and that chip performance comes into play as well. So those quiet tags are now quiet, and they're letting the reader read more tags and hence do that hard to tag inventory and try to complete those tag reading as well. And this gets combined with the search mode, single and target, single and dual. So single meaning that if you read tag once, it'll only be read once, but you can do that a couple of times. And dual means you're constantly reading tags. So these are for applications where you've got constant monitoring, so to speak. So in short, yes, that is the way to do, but to do it, you have to use reader modes. So what I'll do is in the chat, I'll share two articles that kind of go through which mode should I use for which use case. And then another article that talks about sessions and persistence time, which is the time that tags stay quiet for. Yeah, if you go through those resources, they will hopefully answer the question in detail. But yeah, in principle, that is correct. That is possible to do with the readers.
Yeah, and just maybe to follow up with that, Impinj has always had great resources on that. Like Dr. Khan had mentioned, they have some great knowledge-based articles on their website for the different search modes and how they behave and things like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that'll be helpful for you. Okay, I might, if I can, pick up a couple of questions here. We have a ton of them coming in. There's a question here. If the tag is no longer at the workstation, it still shows the RSSI. So that was a good catch by someone on the call here. It's actually a good point. So when that tag event of no longer visible comes over, now it comes over based on that timeout, the 10-second timeout. So the first time you're going to see it is 10 seconds after it's no longer seen by the reader, and it is reported as no longer visible. But the data of that is actually the last tag read that happened at a hardware level. So that RSSI value happens to be the last RSSI that was recorded by ClearStream before the tag was never seen again. So it does send over that RSSI value with the date timestamp of the last time it was seen. So it gives you that accuracy of tag first shows up, tag last seen, and that's the date time reported back to the web console. But good catch on that one from the data that came over. Another question here, when reporting events for tags that are not seen by a reader, is this computation in the cloud or on the onboard application? So this is done on the onboard application. It kind of is where a lot of the processing is done with this tag data. And the reason being is it limits the amount of traffic that's then sent over to the server side. So all of that tag data is being scanned and captured and processed within the ClearStream onboard application. And then based on the events that the users had configured for what they want to send to the endpoint, that's when it sends it. So it's based on that timeout setting that's defined in the settings. But all of that calculation is done on the reader, and it's really done on the reader so that you don't have so much chatter of tag data going from the onboard application to your endpoint. Okay, I think I saw two questions along these lines. Are we limited to setting up for only 8 antennas? What if we're using, and the question is cut off. And there was another one about the Impinj R700 having only 4 antennas. The Impinj R700, you can, like Dr. Khan mentioned, hook up to the to a splitter for the antennas, just like on the Speedway devices, where you can hook up more antennas. So the configuration gives you more of those abilities. The cloud console is actually going to have be a slight change coming up where we have it so that you can add. So just like the filters, where you add filters with the plus and minus buttons and things like that, we're going to be doing that for the antennas as well. So you can add up to, I think the max is 32 antennas or something. You can add all of those options out of the box. Like the other question had mentioned, there are 4 antenna ports on the R700.
Yeah, just to mention a little bit on that, Howie, and I think you did mention it, but just to make it clear, yeah, the antenna hub, or the splitter as we call it, is a single cable connection. So at the direct port of where the antenna would go, you would connect a cable there that would go into the antenna hub, and from the antenna hub, you can connect 8 further antennas. So 4 ports, 8 antenna each allows you 32 maximum antennas. And yes, you can do the settings of power of these antennas individually. And mind you, this is different to what we had in the Speedway reader in terms of needing the adapter and then a couple of other cables to do so. Quite a tidy connection in terms of scalability. But yeah, you can do those 32 antenna connectivity.
Thanks. Question here, will the onboard app also capture the RSSI value along with the content of the tags, and how many tag events can be stored offline? So yeah, like you saw from the data there, the RSSI value is captured with each tag event that's being reported to the console. And then how many tag events can be stored offline? This is in the thousands. I don't have actually an exact number on this, but you can have this running for quite some time. While it's capturing tag data, some of the things, maybe just to note, that are settable within ClearStream. The tag data will actually keep up to some maximum amount in the offline mode, which can be changed, but it'll keep a maximum amount there. And so older tags, if it still cannot report them back to an endpoint, can be deleted from that buffer. So it won't continually filling up the Impinj memory on the device, but it will record those up to some certain level, and then the older tags will be removed from that buffer for the newer ones to be put on top. And that would be only if it's offline for quite some time, but it is in the thousands and thousands of tag events that are recorded into this offline storage mode.
Howie, is that when you say offline, is that based, sorry, so is that number dependent on the Impinj R700 itself that we're talking about here?
Well, it's, yeah, 2 things. If you turned off any restriction on the ClearStream app as to how many tag events it can record on the Impinj R700,
yeah,
because the application will write them to disk if it cannot send them to the endpoint. And if you turn off that limit, ClearStream would technically just keep adding tag events to the buffer that it stores on the reader. And eventually you'd probably run out of space, or the OS would stop doing it. But the application is actually pre-configured with a limit to that. So it's only will keep some number of events on the reader. I don't know what that exact number is. Yeah, but it only keeps.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
That's fine. Yeah, so it'll only keep some certain number of events, and if it's still offline, if it still cannot, it'll throw away the oldest events that are stored in this buffer and put the new ones at the top.
Yeah. So I only interjected because I wanted to kind of give that number. So from the R700 point of view, I do recall reading the number 300,000. So 300,000 is what the Impinj R700 tag events it will hold, and minus what you said in terms of the application allowing and resetting of the buffer. So
right.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but that I wanted to mention that.
Okay, great, thanks. Question here, what are the hardware installation requirements for ClearStream, i.e. what type of PC or server infrastructure is required at the client site? It's a good question. Really, ClearStream, the server-based application that I showed you there with the mappings, that requires just a Windows PC with .NET, some version of .NET installed. The requirements there you'll see on our website if you go to ClearStreamRFID.com to download the application. Really, just a Windows PC will install the application, and you should be good. Another question here, is the reader able to work 24/7 without sleeping? Yes, you can run these things in continuous mode, let them run, scanning tags. They will stay operating for as long as you need them in that continuous mode. Or if you switch it to one of the other modes where it's going based on GPI triggers, it won't go to sleep at any point, or it doesn't require it. I'm just trying to scroll through the questions here. I apologize that they don't give you very big of a window for.
Yeah, and anything we don't answer, folks, you'll get an answer via email from the doctor, Howie, or myself, or our marketing team. And again, feel free to email us at any point if you do have questions you need answered in more detail or would like to have a phone conversation with a PTS representative.
Right, that's a great point. And also, we encourage everybody to download the trial. So if you have any questions at that point as you're setting things up, that'd be great to hear them. I have a question here. While this presentation is geared towards ClearStream RFID software being used with the R700, does it work with other Impinj devices such as the R420 or X-Band? The onboard application does not work with the older Speedway devices. However, ClearStream for Windows, the mapping tool that I showed you, that does work with all Impinj devices. So you could use those with those devices if you needed. Question here, how do we download the trial? If you go to ClearStreamRFID.com, you can download the trial there. Just click the free trial button up at the top right of your screen, and you can fill out the form and you get the download.
And just so everybody knows, you're going to get a download, then you're going to get some login information from our system that will allow you to access everything that you saw Howie demo today.
Some of these are getting cut off, so I apologize. So question, when you say station as in station 1, station 2, et cetera, this can be given a specific name as in single, double, or home run. Yeah, so that workstation 1, I just gave it as the antenna name. That just comes over with the tag data as it's reported to the endpoint as the antenna that read that tag event. So you can name each one of those antennas differently, and then they'll come over with that data as you need them. So you can really name it whatever you'd like, and you can sort of get a zone or a workstation maybe that a particular item was scanned on for that tag event.
Well, I think we'll probably take a couple more questions, Howie, and then we'll probably wrap up. We packed a lot into an hour here. There are a lot of questions I'm seeing about I guess the physics of RFID tag reading, water, mounting tags, those type of things. Probably best to go to ClearStreamRFID.com and put a ticket in our ticket system if you have those specific questions, or actually call our 1-800 number and one of the sales reps will happily go through it. There's different tags for different types of materials. There's a lot to go through and a lot of options in the RFID tag world and how to affix the tags depending on what you're tagging. And we have a full team available to assist with that if needed. And we also have resellers. Our software is distributed and sold around the globe. So there are resellers in most countries, and we're always looking to add new resellers. So we have a complete channel of RFID experts and integration experts that are putting installations in of ClearStream all the time around the globe.
Yeah, I know we're running over the hour here. Brad, I don't know how many more you'd like me to go through. There's a question here I think I'd like to answer is, does the R700 have to be set to LLRP or IoT mode for ClearStream to work? You'll want to set it to LLRP mode. So if you download the trial and install it, just make sure it is in the LLRP mode, not IoT mode, to have it work. And like Brad had mentioned, I do apologize, there's a lot of questions here. If anything, please follow up with this after the webinar if I don't happen to get to it. Follow-up question to the antennas. The antennas, are they distributed in an area and they can be identified with a name? Yeah, just like I had mentioned in the previous question, you can name the antennas as you need them, and that data comes over to the endpoint, so you know exactly which antenna read the tag or what that tag event was recorded by. A question, will the webinar be recorded? Yep, we're recording this webinar and it will be posted to our YouTube channel for review. It's always good for afterwards if you can follow along with the demo and set everything up. A couple questions here on pricing. If you'd like to reach out to us after the call today for the equipment as well as the software.
Yeah, it's probably best to talk to your reseller or your PTS representative when we get into pricing. Pricing is listed, I believe, on the websites, but you know, depending on your region, the price might vary. So we'd rather do that offline.
A question here, how often are you scanning to identify that a tag is no longer visible? So the reader is always actively scanning for tags. It's based on that timeout setting that you saw in the tag events area. That timeout setting is the value that we use to define what you assume has been the length of time that the tag can now be considered gone. So like the demo today, I had it at 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds. The tag has to go away for 10 seconds and not be seen by the reader, which is always actively scanning for those tags, to then be assumed that it's gone. And at that point, you could, based on the settings, report it again or report it as not visible event to the endpoint. Question here, does ClearStream work with active RFID and BLE options? It's a great question. We have BLE support for scanning for Bluetooth beacons. You can take a look at that. On the ClearStream for Windows side, it's not an onboard application, but we do support those. Question about here, do you mention keyboard wedge interface? Yeah, you can hook up, like I mentioned, a keyboard wedge, or you can use ClearStream as a keyboard wedge. It'll read data from RFID and the destination can be a keyboard output. So you can actually add RFID to legacy systems. I think we did a webinar hooking it up to a QuickBooks installation, scanning RFID tags into QuickBooks for Windows, and it did that as a keyboard app. So you can hook it up to things that don't have RFID support.
I think there's even a video on the YouTube channel on that, Howie. That's really kind of cool. A great, simple solution to get data in accurately to systems really quickly. And I think you even go through the setup, which is in minutes, you're setting that up.
Right. Is this onboard feature available now on the free trial demo? Yep, if you go to our website, go to clearstreamrfid.com, you can get the demo of onboard for the R700. I don't know, Brad, if there's any.
No, I would say we close up now, Howie. Maybe you just want to quickly go to the, if you want to show your screen, the ClearStream page where they can sign up for the, I think the open office would be really valuable for a lot of the folks on the call who may be down more in the weeds of, the technical side of RFID to get access to you guys, and you could have one-on-one conversations. It's a great way to get in touch with us and really dive in. And then you can also hear what other users are doing and how they're using the software and the types of problems they're solving. And then there's also a complete ticket system. If you go to support and hit the drop down, you'll see that we have FAQs. We have a lot of great resources to help you through the installation. And we also have services where we'll actually do configurations and assist you directly. So maybe you don't have the technical resources, or maybe you don't even have the time to get started. We like to say we have two ways to get up the mountain. You can have us help you, or you can go up on your own. And we're always here for assistance. So please reach out to us. Put in a ticket if you have a question, attend an open office or a future webinar. And with that, I guess we'll close it out. Thank you, Howie. Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Impinj, for supporting the webinar. I think we had a really good showing and a lot of great interest from everybody who attended. We always say this, we wouldn't be where we are 23 years in business without the great users that we have and the great customer base giving us great ideas to build into our software. So thanks so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening, depending on where you are. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining the webinar.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.